the Swiss Art Award, so congratulate him because it's a very competitive and ambitious contest, and we're very proud to have you here. Thank you, Matthias, for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will read you shortly a statement. He was born in Rio de Janeiro, but he just told me actually that her mom is Argentinian and his father is from Zurich, right?
Switzerland,
Yeah. And so he's Swiss-based artist, and he's working with a hybrid fictional character from the sea of information that explores the emotional disorientation of a generation having grown up with mass culture, neoliberalism, and the internet. By proving the mechanism of pop, price musical stories evoke instability, fear, and romantic disillusion. Where do you want to go today? It's a work, for example, that reinvents itself from clubs to art galleries, using this diverse context to affirm the frustration and solitude of a generation he considers to be down and out. For Matthias, performance, including the rigorous of rehearsal and physical discipline, provides a necessary corrective at the moment when the internet has enhanced the cultural dominance of the image, now more easily produced and disseminated than even before. The presence of the artist's body not only acts as a crucial point of orientation for navigating the practice, but also serves as a reminder of the material register crucial to identity, emotion, and communication. At a time when storytelling has taken over the collective psyches, the artist's sincere and ambitious presence has a testimonial value. And that was his statement. Something else to mention is that he studied at the Gerrit Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam, and then he went to the Master in Performing Arts at the Fine Arts School in Bern. And yeah, that's it. So enjoy it. Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Okay. Yeah, let's just start with that one piece that I recently I'm showing, and a little bit I'm showing. That's called "Where Do You Want to Go Today?" in brackets variations. Before I explain more about that, I think I would just like to introduce this lecture with like something like 7 to 8 minute extract of like a variation of that performance that is a video variation. And yeah, just have a look.
Which one of you did it? Which one of you killed my dog? You don't know the meaning of the word, neighbors. They must like each other, speak to each other, care if anyone lives or dies. But none of you do. But I couldn't imagine any of you being so low that you killed a helpless, friendly dog.
I guess we have to talk about the death again. We died many times and in many ways, like that dog. But still, we are happy to reproduce and still reproduce again. Show me that painting very long. Why he suffered on being ignored. The image started with a beating change, floating bubble like the earth insane. Touched by a sleazing man, so called doctor campaign. Wise gimmicks of that church, our bromance went to hell up. 'Cause staring why meaning has changed. Oh, what more would you like to pray? The image shown by you wins over my needs. What a lover's would do. You cover me with that shout. Can we laugh while being trapped in bad? Who came in and broke that kingdom lovers' goods? It's water called a hairy chest. Warm me up on that kinky naughtiness. Why his head molded into a dog and time becomes his best friend. I never believed that picture had its fiction, 'cause by daily life I never believed that picture had its fiction, 'cause by heavy lights, how could you? How could you do? Try to find a friend in yourself. Shouldn't trust people.
Neighbors like each other, speak to each other, care in any way or lie. But I couldn't imagine any of you being so large and healed and was friendly time. The only thing is holding on like they
Break. Okay, that's like the first 8 minutes 39 seconds of a video that lasts something like 20, what, 22, 25 minutes. Um, huh? Thank you. What's your name? Doesn't matter, okay. So, what matters for that project is that I collaborated with several people, and as you maybe have seen a bit, maybe I make it big again. There's clothes, there's fashion, there's costumes, there's like props, there are these frames, there's this space, and there's music. So yes, I do work with, let's say, interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary, however you want to, label it. But what I do is, what happened in this project, it started, I don't know, 2017 maybe, with producing a pop musical, we called it pop musical audiobook, that, yeah, it's actually then a music album. You can listening as pop music. The music you have heard now in this video is part of that audiobook. That's just a visual version of it. That's shorten it down in something to in some length of 25 minutes. But the album had a cinematic approach that goes to something like 1.5 an hour, so like a kind of some like a length as a film, let's say. Films go also longer, but like we were like a little bit okay, something like 1.5 hour, and try to tell a story, like make a pop album that doesn't have track in itself, that it ends and it's like songs starting and ending in itself, but then rather having a one like arc, I guess, Bogen, that includes all of the songs. They're like combined. They all have like transitions and fades, and so the music has been composed with Alban Schelbert and a music duo called Modulo. They all three, they live in Zurich. We had a guest guitarist, Christian Neunschwanden, and me. So, where do I play? I do play in different venues such as galleries and museums and theater institutions. So, yes, about the music, we clarified that by now, and we go on with the fashion. So the fashion has been done by Victor Barragan. His label is called Barragan. He's from Mexico based, lives in, no, he's from Mexico but based in New York. met him through social media, and I just wrote him because I've seen his very beginning of his collections, and he had a very interesting approach to fashion or to clothing or costume or something you would wear, because he will from the very beginning he was very much also having a certain humor or and of course a comment on fashion, not just be like just not serving for fashion, but more being a little bit more critical or more with a certain humor towards fashion. But then also what I saw in certain pieces, and that's why I also contacted him, is that works he have done, they were not just like it was not just like a pullover or whatever. It became also something else. It was always like also maybe it's just also just an object, or maybe it was just always in between. It was two things in once. And I found this interesting when I thought towards like performing, stage, theatricality. I don't know how to say the word in English. Theater, and etc. So luckily we met in Paris Fashion Week, and it was like, yay, let's work together. So this is what came out. The frames, it's like an idea I had, so I just produced it with wood workshop people. I don't know what to say in English, but yeah, I guess you get what I mean. But yes, so I have maybe a bit more images about that project. Let me scroll up. Here. This was this last summer in Impulse Tanz Vienna and in Mumok. Maybe you have heard. Thank you. So these are images of like the props, the fashion, and some behavior Price is applying on stage or on a space he occupies for a certain moment. So you can have a little bit of a look. That's Price. Welcome. That's also Price sometimes. And that's also Price. So how this work is the dramaturgy, or like the work, like how this is being played out. It is constructed as the same way the album, the pop musical audiobook has been constructed, and it's within acts. It says like it has like this like Hörspiel audiobook length that goes through, but it's chopped in acts. So actually, if you hear the music, you could zap through the acts. So the album doesn't have like titles of songs. It does, but like it's a bit of more, I don't know, how would you say? It's a bit more numerous or listed up by acts 1 till 30. So it's 30 acts. So what happened in a physical, live, performative version of that Where Do You Want to Go Today audiobook are these images. Like what happens is I do apply within something like 60 to 70 minutes, different acts. I do change them upon a venue, upon architecture, space, duration, whatever is required by the institution. And I just kind of also really like that, let's say I have a concept or like a structure of a work, but as soon as I get bored or I get mainly if I get bored with like repeating, like the idea of touring a work. This happens when you, I don't know, luckily get established, and then you're like, great, I'm gonna do this work 30 times, and then maybe you're like, yeah, you start to go into this idea, like in this thing of like a routine. And this is not always very like beautiful for work. or for your own behavior or for your own stage presence if you fall into a routine. So what do I that's horrible, right? That's factory work. This we don't want because we are luckily artists, right? So well, yes, here we are. We do variations and I'm allowed to change my work. So that's how I build that. So you can see just some fragments of like how I do behave, and you heard in a video a little bit what I would have, what I talk, how I would sing. So this is a little impression what this work is. But let's go back to the very beginning here. I graduated in 2000, what was it, 15? I don't know, maybe 15. And I started with this project called Greatest Hits. And that was my first music album that I worked with Mark Hofer, and also later on with Alban Sherbert. And you can hear it on SoundCloud. I will not show too much of that sound right now. But like that was an image done by Mathilde Agnos, a photographer, and I wanted to kind of start my identity as Price with a greatest hits. Like, I don't know, I just like the idea that the first album or the first music I ever will drop is already my greatest hits. So to just end with like just like what I like, the idea of the title became because in this work I did not write my lyrics. In the previous one, you just have heard a bit and see images. I did write almost all of the lyrics. Some are cover. It's like reference or a part of a cover, but mainly it's written by myself. This one was another approach. It was more my personal greatest hits that I chopped up and cut and made new lyrics as a not new lyrics, new compositions. Because I went through pop music and I was like, yeah, well, very commercial. Like known famous pop music, they have like certain topics everyone repeats. It's like faith, love, desire. Like there's like very stereotype of like texts or messages. If you go really to the very, very pop, I'm not saying everyone was that. So what I did is like I took as especially these songs that I really like, that are very, very much actually often talking about the same, and then you just chop them and recompose the text, and the meaning still stays kind of almost the same. So, but then what you have in this album is just like nostalgic, like deja vus, or like feeling like, oh, I know that sentence, but like, it just went away again, because then it's like, I don't know, Carole King, and then like, oh, Usher, and then it's like, oh, that was Ariana Grande. It's like, oh no, but like it's just like this the whole album. So this is how that got constructed. So that was really, it's a bit of a personal work. That's really like my personal greatest hits. So this also got a performative stage version, and that looks like this. That's back in 2015, a selfie stick. That's me doing a paper fly, an airplane out of a paper. I was already interested in fashion. Whatever. No, yeah, well, this is like, kind of the beginning of the character, where he applies stories and sings and behaves a bit precare or under influence. Doesn't matter if it is I mean, we can all interpret differently how we would like to perceive under influence, if it is like mentally from something outside, if it is, but it is a certain state that I'm interested in putting on stage. A little bit a character who who is a character who I would, how can I say that? Like two, I would say, attributes. How this character, I built this character was like something about the hybrid person, a hybrid character, and another character who I would call the host. These two, let's say, these two kind of people that we also experience in, I don't know, society or on the street whatsoever, or in Freundeskreis, around us. They inspire me to like go to what price is today. So the hybrid I did choose because of also like because of I've realized my work is transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary, and it is not so easy to label or put the finger on, or like even when if I apply for money, or if it is not clear which institution wants to work with me. And sometimes a club wants to have the concert. I'm like, great, yeah, I'm a musician. And then it's like, they also say like, you're a musician. I'm like, yeah, I'm whatever you want to be. It's fine. And then like Kunsthalle Basel asks, and then like certainly there's like Swiss Dance Days and like young choreographer or whatever. Like, and I was like, oh, this happened not with, I didn't have the plan that this is happening, but I was like, okay, this is what happens. And I was like, beginning I was a little bit more disturbed by how institutions or directors or whoever labeled what I do. And I was like, no, actually it's great when they like say what I am, because it's great. Like it's kind of a confirmation that it is interdisciplinary, that it doesn't, you cannot really put the finger where it is, and that was great. It was actually a compliment for me. So I was like, oh, let's go like this. Economically, it's also even better. I don't sell paintings, I do perform. So if I have more gigs, better for me. And if I can work with 3 institutions, not just with theater or dance, but then also museum or gallery, and then even sometimes clubs, it's great, because also as a performer, you can just learn from other crowds, other countries, other crowds. If it's in 3 in the morning, or if it's at 7 in the after, or like in the beginning of the evening, if it is like more of a bougie, you know, museum, or it is a underground, whatever, beton basement with some drunk people, there's always something you can take with you. It's not like, oh, that was shit. No, it's great. It's like it's also really fun when you like repeat showing your work, and then in some crowds people are just like scream and, I don't know, comment or clap, whatever, and then in some like they just not even dare to move, and they're really like, you see the construct and like the behavior of certain institutions. You see how rigid institutions are and how codified people behave in all institutions. And I do admire a lot experiencing them by just repeating my work in all kinds of it. So then this is why also like I went for the hybrid character, to like not be graspable, like who is he, how does he talk, why does he behave like this. It's just really more, it is changes. You can say like maybe lunatic, or I don't know, schizophrenic, whatever. You can label it differently. Hybrid body. And the other one that appeared later, especially in that work, where do you want to go today? The work I'm showing right now, is the host. And the host, I got a bit introduced by a workshop I had by Isabel Lewis in Vienna. It was very inspiring workshop where she introduced the host. And then what I took, I mean, she talked about all kinds of different things, but what I took with me and I really liked was, I was a little bit worried about like what how I'm gonna go on being solo on stage alone, ego, like being there and just like always being the fucking clown or whatever, talking about stuff or performing. Like the idea or the perception of someone performing, it also has something very like, if you talk in private, not in on stage. If I'm like myself, meet people and I talk, and then they're like, so you're a performer, so you really like there's like a certain understanding what these people are, or what they love to be exposed, and like they have like, there's also again a cliche what these people might love. I'm like, hell fuck no, like this is not always like this. But there's certain decisions that you say like, yeah, I think the form needs to be a performance. That doesn't mean that you're like, I don't know, a narcissistic weirdo, you know. It just doesn't mean that. But it can be perceived like this. So what happened is like, oh, well, if you had like this, the character, let's say the person, a host, that's a person like, he comes in here in a room, he guides the evening, he makes people feel comfortable, and he interacts with the people, has conversation, goes, you know, into like what the wishes, what the guests want, and try to guide, you know, make the evening great. It's not about them, it's not about himself, it's really more about what is around him and how he navigates and conducts the things. But he's in control of things. And I really liked when Isabel Lewis introduced that character when it comes to like solo works. And I was like, that it doesn't only stay this kind of like, yeah, the guy who sings and just performs, and he's just like, you know, doesn't care about the audience. So in this work, he came in, the host. And I'm happy I encountered that part of Price that I want to keep, that I want to go on also. So maybe have a little break of talking. We could maybe show a little bit of a video. I think I have something. Where was that? Should I do? Yeah. What should I do? Or should we? No, okay. No, let's do this. So this was Theaterspektakel this summer. That's the first sharing of a new work that will premiere in March 2021 in Tanzhaus Zurich. Where I go on with what I just a bit explained, but embrace this time much more the topic of improvisation in music, especially because like I really admire the whole creation I had with the music producers I worked for this previous work. But I feel for developing developing a bit the flow, the whole how the whole performance in life navigates with the people. I was really interested to have music applied live and not just by playback, because in the previous process I have been doing music, coming with the finished music on stage and chopping, cutting, re-editing and see what can be applied. And here I work with like a music producer called Cécile Believe. She's based in LA. She's from Canada. And a jazz pianist from Biel, called Sebastian Hirsig. And I can just show a little bit of an extract of what we're doing there. It's very it's much more, I feel it's much more music than before, less talking, and maybe we'll be a bit more into club, or we will see.
control. Maybe try get down as a eyes and children lay down, there's no ground. Archive rehearsal his own new place as he chooses to leave, as he chooses to leave. So Harry went to another place as he chose to live. So Harry fell down his face as he chose to bleed. But wonder met that wonder, he crossed that thunder and loved his hunger. Then I saw Harry's bleeds, then I heard his needs, and then I felt Harry's beliefs. But I choose to live. We got closer, and even closer. We bent our closure and held that motion.
Etc. So it goes a bit in this direction, this work that is called Melodies Are So Far My Best Friend. And visually it will change pretty much. I don't know if pretty much, but it will extend, let's say. The collaboration with Baragan is still going on, as it's still continuing. And we are right now in process of what is the stage, what are the costumes, what are the props, etc. We will work with bigger canvases, as like fabric canvas, not canvases, but like bigger pieces of fabric actually. Because I guess, I don't know if it was, the quality is very bad in this documentation, but what I'm doing is I'm layering more and more garments on top of my body, and but the initial idea is to have a certain repetitive movement that is pretty much attached to, I don't know, I guess social dance, or very symbolic, very poses. It's very image making actually, that are familiar. Like we some are more feminine, some are a bit more masculine. I'm playing with this for sure, with femininity and masculinity in voice, and also in, let's say, body postures or body representations. So I do layer on top of them and repeat, and my wish is that through changing or adding, the form gets or vanished or becomes another, or has another connotation. It depends. Yeah, and it's very a starting big idea that will very soon go on and then premiered in, as I told you, in Tanzhaus in spring. How I want to go on. There's not so much more to say. I think I rather want to have a conversation and maybe questions, and then
for doing this last video, for example.
the last video you see,
No, this what you have seen.
just that now here.
Yeah.
The reason why I documented it, or why I did the performance.
Both of them.
As I did the performance because that's my praxis, and I believe it's important to have a hybrid body in and in this work especially, would like to question the normative structures, heteronormative structures, and I would like to, in this work especially, it is about through vibration to work, through melody, through improvisation, um, changing perspective, or suggesting other perspectives than like a normative structure. That was like that initial idea we all three got together, and that's, let's say, a reason. The documentation, why it is documented, is because if you're a performing artist, you would like to get booked, and if you want to be booked, you need to have a full documentation of your work. Otherwise, it doesn't work. That's it.
Thank you, Matthias. I would like to thank you very much for such a nice presentation.
You're welcome.
I'm going to join you just to
please.
get into the conversation and develop the questions like the colleague here is developing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
I
had like a list of things that I'm very curious about.
Mm-hmm.
I like to start with very basic things about how you came up with the name of Price, and if you could tell us more about what is this. You mentioned about the host and about this. You create this character and then you kind of incarnate the character. How did you came up with that, and what actually means for you, Price?
Thank you for asking. I wrote it down. I forgot to explain. So
just spontaneously.
Yes.
I love your freshness of talking very spontaneous about your work. So
okay, good. Yes. As you maybe have seen, or as I try to tell every venue or everyone who writes about it, Price wishes to be written in capital. So it is also assuming it can also be a little bit of a brand. This name also started a little bit early when I was doing graphic design and art direction, because that's my background. So I was like, okay, what does it mean to use another name, and why would I want to be the name look like a brand? Like, what's the idea behind it? So the name, changing the name is for me, pretty simple. When I'm from art direction, graphic design, went very coincidentally, a little bit of a coincidence, I end up doing performing arts. And then as everyone has to graduate, and it's like, yeah, if you want to graduate, you have to do a master and exam work. So I was like, okay. It's like, yeah, you don't have to be on stage, but you can, up to you. Or you can be a choreographer, or you have to be also yourself on stage. I mean, I say it a little bit pragmatic, but like, in short. So I was like, okay, yeah, I end up doing this music. Yes, I'm going to be on stage. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not willing to use my passport name. I think it's towards then, exactly when I researched and came a bit into this conclusion that I would like to have a hybrid character. I want to put my private, public, born, passport, whatever, identity by side, and have another name to explore what else I can become, do, pretend, I don't know, make up. And it helps to, and I never was really on stage before, and it helped for me to have another name that I can jump into beyond what I so far know what my identity is. And that's also, I think that's, again, a very normative structure that implements that into you within education, family, like there's a million things. Depends also which city you born, or you're in a countryside, or you're in a big metropole. Doesn't matter. Like, there's many things, many reasons. But therefore I was like, okay, if I just put another name, I can already delete my tradition, let's say, and start from zero. That's why. And then the second, the brand thing, it's like, And I don't know, when I put this name and I was like, okay, let's make it capital and let's look at it a little bit like a brand. It was a bit also price, and it's like, what price? Like price, like a price. And then I was like, and I remember I was looking at, I don't know, I remember I saw an interview of Rihanna. Well, there's many artists who talked, I guess, about it, but like I ended up with Rihanna, and I really also like her music. And then I was like, yeah, she was like, this typical thing that artists says in music, pop artists say like, yeah, the price you pay, to be in this like industry. I was like, well, I like that, and I was like, okay, and then it's like, and then this is end up a bit like this, that I kind of like these things that I don't know, a bit like you do something that you like, but you have to also like um, coordinate or compromise with things, and that's always what you do as an artist. You for sure compromise with a lot of things. That's the economy of an artist. Like, you're not just gonna be like, yeah, I'm not romantic towards my work. I'm like, this is business as every other business. That's a joke. Like everything, like where I don't know, maybe back in the days, but today, no. You have to be a manager. You have to be a great talker. You have to be smart, also a little bit like, cute and nice, and then like also like everything. So I was like, okay, I'm fine. I mean, I'm like, if I want to I mean, I don't want to lie to myself and not to price or whatsoever. I was like, okay, if I decide to do this path, better get comfortable with that. Otherwise, you're just gonna disappoint yourself, or you have an illusion what this art world is. It is not cute.
Maybe you can be a romantic capitalism.
Maybe
Capitalism.
not. So like this is a bit like how I end up with this name, and yeah, I think it is. I think the main reason, huh?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thank you for explanation. It makes totally sense. Actually, of course, today being an artist means a lot of branding yourself. I mean, you had to
Of course.
establish your name, and I found fascinating that you choose such explicit name. I mean, of course, when you read Price as a title, as a name, you try to destigmatize it for its original definition. But when you totally read it about,
Mhm.
just it totally constructs this institutionalization of yourself in between this title that you're putting it, and yeah, and I mean also in the theatrical aspect, I totally appreciate your description. I think in theater, in the performativity through your body, you have this potentiality of trespass yourself and transgress your identity, and when you entitle other character, you can design and construct it. So I find that it's totally fascinating and accurate. Your description, like totally organic. Actually, I appreciate it. Yeah. And will you tell us how did you actually start? You start with this construction of, let's say, alter ego of what is your idea of performing and being an artist, becoming an artist that has to, as you mentioned, delete and reset all the cultural construction of how one's supposed to be. And how did you start performing, actually? Like, how do you start constructing not only the statement of Price as a brand, as a performer figure, but also this transition of you know becoming? How did you came into that? You mentioned you were before practicing as as designer and as a artistic director. I can totally see those qualities in your work. Would you like to tell us a little bit how it was this transition to let's say establish Price?
Yeah. Okay. I remember. I mean, I remember. It's very clear that when I was doing the first year of graphic design in Amsterdam at Rietveld Academy, um, I there was like during the first year of design, there was like this audition paper in a big aula by Alexander Barsetsis, some might know, established wonderful choreographer from Switzerland, Greece, who made an open call audition for non-dancers, and I think she knew through Julia Born, a graphic design teacher, also Swiss, who gave classes to me or to many others, graphic designers in Amsterdam, that the school is very variate. It's the variation of visual looking people in our art school was very huge because there was like over 40 whatever 45 nations or something. It's very 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 international, so therefore there's like many characters, many people. So it's like, okay, I should make an audition there for, therefore I guess to like, you know, have in the end 14 non-dancers performing for her in a piece called Dancing. So I did audition there, and we all 14, I think it was, selected people. We got we could skip the school for 5 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. It was like over 10 years ago, I don't know exactly. And that was really beautiful because then I was busy with the idea of, I don't know, choreography, dance, movement, body. How does that communicate? And I was studying visual communication. Dance is very visual, very direct, very there. Like, it's all there. So after that, I was like, hey, that's not so far away actually. What is dance and what is graphic design is not so far. We think of dramaturgy, we think of like arc, we think of visuals, aesthetics, we think of color, of everything. It's like very clear that this is not so far away. Only like how then in the end the product, or like the product, it's maybe bad to say, but like the result, the thing is as a graphic designer, you can always be behind this computer and then like delete, Apple save, like all this stuff, and then like print again, publish, buy, you know, like no, as a performer, it's like or you deliver, or you screw up. It's like, yes, you have to see, like it's in the moment. What I want to say, it's in the moment. And then I thought like it's really, I really like, I was finding out that like, hey, actually I really like more in the moment communication than like communication redone and done and book and other paper and other size and poster website this that. Oh, maybe then this. No, I was like, fuck this. Maybe it's just great to have a space, people, and just like do something live. And then I just kept it, just stayed in my mind, but I still graduated with graphic design. I adored doing everything in graphic design. I worked as art director and it was beautiful. Everything's great. But then when it comes to like, hey, well, you could do a master because you know, you're privileged, we live in Europe, and everything is pretty cheap and nice. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do a master as well. So I auditioned in Bern because they didn't ask for any theater or any dance background. So this is an application upon a concept. What would you like to, how would you like to approach, I don't know, dramaturgy or choreography or like or theater, or, you know, there's different ways to like, I guess, get in there or like apply. But yeah, so I proposed and then luckily I got in. And this is how I get in. And then the character, a bit maybe how I mentioned before, I did choose that character because I had no let's say I had no answer why Matthias Ringgenberg should be on stage. I was like, why is this interesting? Why he should be on stage? Like, no, nothing. Up. And then it's like, okay, let's like see what can we do with myself. That there's like a stage thing that I can also like, I don't know, maybe I have to also say, okay, another side, I from my family part, especially my mom's part, Brazil, we will really much also in I would say in relation with Umbanda, everything that is a little bit more ritual, incorporation, ayahuasca, all these kinds of things. So it was like, yeah, there's this incorporation. There's also anthropophagia. There's like this cannibalism. There's like this appropriating, becoming, eating himself, eating, being eaten up or eat up. there's all of this. So I was like, yeah, that's also like there in my background since childhood. I was like, then I should maybe do that. And then this I end up incorporating maybe. Yeah.
Wow, it's very poetic. Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And also, as you mentioned again, with the name, the title that can bring you to somewhere else, that you can build this construction is very
Yeah.
theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to ask you, when you start to produce, like, let's say you share us about your organic motivations, your, let's say your background, your cultural background, your conceptual reference from childhood and so on. But how did you start to actually, produce a work that you will say, this is an artwork and I'm happy with that as a product, as a in Gime, like as a result of my practice. Like, how did you come up to build the construct of the performativity of price? Like you mentioned us before about the character, like the construction of the character, their their organic motivations, how they build up, how it organically came up with the context, with the circumstances, with the experience, with the school. But how came up the construction of the work actually? Not only, of course, it's already a work, the character, because that's a totally, let's say, a construction that is a work in itself. But how did you work the
content
stage? Yes,
the stage.
I mean, stage. I don't know if I don't know, because of the transdisciplinary aspect of your work. It's very delicate to put labels and say, is this that or that, But what I like to hear about your experience when building up the work in itself, whatever you like to call performance, stage, or singing, or it's more about how did you came up in building such a construction.
Okay, let me see if I can answer this. Okay, I mean, a thing that I always took with me as a great, I don't know, advice by when I was studying graphic design, it was always like, focus on the concept, think what you want to do, research, like go for content, and then you're going to think, what does that content need as a form? Like, where is it? Do you want to emballage or pack it? What's it called? Like, is it gonna be a website? Like in graphic design context, it was like, was there gonna be a website or just a flyer, or a lecture or a PowerPoint? Like, I don't know. There was like, don't start with like, I want to do a book. No, I want to do a book about. I want to do something about whatever, a green floor. And then you're going to figure out if this concept or idea with the green floor needs a book, a website, or just whatever. So when I started to do performances, or like generate my material that maybe necessary was not really even not clear if it's going to be performance. I was more like busy with the content. So like in the graduation work, as I said, with this greatest hits album, I knew I was like, I was studying and mastering performing arts, and they told me, if you want to graduate, it's kind of like a physical performative work. And I was like, okay. But then like I was just like, I don't know, a year in studio and just being busy with audio. And I didn't really spend time in any physical, and the character was not there. Like nothing, none of it. Not maybe just the concept of the name. Okay, that was maybe there. And then I was like, okay. And after, when this music was there, I was like, okay, what can I do with this? And then I see, but then like I guess, I don't know. I guess because I was in the institution of a performing arts, let's say school, and you have to graduate, I was, I guess, like, yeah, okay, let's embrace. I was more easy, like, let's embrace this performance, this live thing, Maybe if I would have been in graphic design or fine arts, I would have maybe make different decisions. I don't know yet. I don't know anymore. I mean, I don't know. But I knew this needs to be done. So I'm gonna go for that. And then I found pleasure in it, and I found, what's it called, resonance. Like, I don't know, people booked me, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, and then I was like, okay, maybe I can maybe live from this, huh? Maybe I can do more. I don't know. It was really a bit like this. I mean, I had always side jobs and other things. And I didn't stop with graphic design. I was doing still websites for other theater people. And like, hey, you the guy who also did graphic design, right? I was like, yeah, but actually I want to do performing arts. But like, could you do a website for me? And I'm like, yeah, I could. But I also could just be maybe I would like to be a choreographer or something. Like, I don't know. It was just really, and I was like, whatever. That's how it is, you know. And then you're like, well, okay, I'm doing a Visa card and a fucking flyer for you, whatever you want. But then I go on with my own work. This happens, and then later on, maybe you start to improve, and people like, actually, he's really interested in performing us, and he's actually continuing doing performance, and then maybe you get an invitation. So that happened with like Les Urbains, actually. That will happen again in 7 till 9 of December this year in Lausanne. It's once a year. Free festival, 3 days. Great works. Go there. Fun. And yeah, I got invited there. Now I'm curating there. So it's fun. And with amongst other great curators, huh? Not just me. I'm just like a little guest curator. And they're like many great ones building this beautiful festival together. And I showed my work there, and then this was like, I think, a big exposure, I guess, because people go there, it's for free, curators go, international people go. And I was, I guess, just lucky, I guess, in a certain time doing something that people were attracted to. And till now I can survive. That's it. I don't know, did it answer your question? I don't
Yeah,
even know.
totally. I mean, in a way, not in the, let's say, in the conceptual frame of how do you construct an artwork, but
Mhm.
more or less in the organic sense of how actually life develops, and then work come out as a, the constancy, probably the constant agreement in between your needs, your desires, your wishes of
Mhm.
what comes up, every day, and like, should I do this or that,
Yeah.
So I totally see it as you describe it. It was like very
Mm.
descriptive. It's still a mystery. How do you construct your work? Yeah. No, but I totally, but I
mean,
totally get it. That gradually you just have this resistance in between your true interests,
Mhm.
and go through that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe just to finish, like, I don't know, to finish that part, maybe it's like, mm,
Probably every work has a different construction, but
mhm,
as you mentioned, the complexity of label your work when you're doing transdisciplinarity, that
mhm,
that your work can be booked in a gallery,
mhm,
in a club,
mhm,
in a theater space, in
mhm,
a so on, in different contexts with different publics.
mhm,
Such a thing, it's very unique, and I guess the quality is that you generate empathy towards the public, and still, if you even approach pop subjects, which are of course of popularity in general,
mhm,
you still have your own aesthetics that make it an artistic work.
mhm,
But there is a big complex construction in between producing music, producing stage. As you mentioned before, you first started doing is it backup call, and then live, and so on. I mean,
yeah,
you gradually went
yeah,
up in producing authentic pieces with musicians, like the last work you show us.
mhm,
The
yeah,
melodies are so
as
far
far
my
my
best
best friend,
friend.
yeah,
In that, yeah, you show a emotional landscape with melancholic aesthetics, and you construct this piece in collaboration with musicians. But
yes.
how do you structure this work? I mean,
They'd say like the new work, how I gonna say that? I have a well-written text that I don't know by heart, but like, oh, okay, how do I say? Yeah, I do remember, I do remember getting into reading about Baroque and Rococo, And then like later I was like Rococo was more of like a playful time, more improvisation and like the light, the easy, and I was like that, and I was like, maybe this is a bit like how the symptoms of the generation or like the zeitgeist is today, a little bit like light, vanishing, using, throwing away, just like doesn't stay long, doesn't, it's not long duration, like it's just like fast, like trash, and like I was like, okay, maybe this is, maybe we're back in Rococo, and I was like, that's fun. I was like, I like this idea. And I was like, okay. And then they were talking about this improvisation. I was like, yeah, it's true. Like, I didn't really embrace so far really improvisation when it comes to music. And I was like, how could I do that? And it's like, okay, within having people live with me and let's say sharing my concept or my idea with them, and then doing sessions and see how we could work with this idea of improvisations. And then this, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna go too much in theory, but like this came because, okay, let's say, I was like, I would argue, or how would you say that? I would blame or argue or like point out, oh God, that improvisation could be today maybe a resistance for normative structures, because let's say a pop song is a normative structure, because what normative structures do, they repeat and repeat until you believe. So what a pop song does, there's a refrain and you say everything, I don't know, 5 times, and then you believe, and it stays in you and sticks. It's like it glues, it sticks to you. It gets ohrwurm, evergreen, like how's it called? It's like grrr, and it's like, when you dream and it stays in your head, and you sing this, it stays. It's a hit. It's also a hit because it repeats, and it has this like hook moment, and it's very much it's a control system, and we do apply pop music because we would like to control people in this world. There is also something very dark about pop music. So I was like, yeah, I've been doing that. I was like, yay, but I have to grow, right? So like here we are, Price is back, and then maybe he needs to do more improvisation now, in terms of to understand, or to, let's say, I don't know, give it a try. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm achieving this, but I'm like, let's say, let's at least be busy with it, and try to see how it could be improvisation within in performance, a resistance towards like very much of a heteronormative structure. For a person like me as a biography, like a queer body, I'm gay. I live in Zurich. Not much is not much is queer or gay here, and there's also like a little utopia, or a little nice thing I live. Mathias Ringgenberg can live through Price. That is not much present in this Zurich. So that's also a little bit like why I maybe also end up doing such work.
It's a very strong statement. So I understanding as you try to make a contestatory position in improvisation towards the mainstream a conditioned slogan and marketing strategy in aesthetics of consumption.
Yes.
Because of course we are indoctrinated to consume and, as you mentioned, repeat. So I guess it's a I also perceive it as that maybe improvisation has the potentiality of being a contestatory thing today, when everything is marketing and is structuring ecologically construction to consume, to be consumed, to be addicted. I think in glutamate monosodic, I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's
there's
say,
different things.
Is that, yeah. And so just to, I don't know what time going. So I think we can go on. Because it's so
I don't
inspiring.
know.
Your
Maybe
positions are
I don't.
very
Yeah.
inspiring.
Or we
Yeah,
open
I
up
think
however
I
you
like
want.
to
Like
open. Yeah, excuse me, I forgot about it.
10:30.
If you sorry, do you have any questions that you'd like to add? It would be a pleasure to have your questions. Yeah. Yeah, we're live streaming, but we still not.
Or we talk after.
We
It's also
still
fine.
not jet into the chat of the YouTube. So, but if you have any questions, you're very welcome. No, I don't see you. Yeah, no questions. Yeah. So I'd like to make one last question.
Okay.
What are your artists? Do you like? What are your inspiring artists in any
Jesus.
sense? I mean, artists is a very
In any sense.
wide word, not only contemporary artists, but also any, or what are, let's say, in other words, what are your inspiration, like where do you find inspiration, or
Okay.
where are you inspired for?
Okay, inspiration. Yeah, it's different. Like I think my inspirations are a bit of opposite, or it's very theoretical books, like Sachbücher, whatever. People I meet and like, hey, I think you should read this. I'm like, okay, and then I read this, and I was like, okay, that's maybe nice or not, and then more. Countries, places, cities, venues, events where there's like a Reibung, how's it called? Like
Friction.
a friction, or like when sometimes I don't know, it can be really random. You can just like be in Coop, and then like someone says something really bizarre while this and this and this and this happens. I think it's more the composition one when something happens, nothing really special, but like when this happens while this and this and this happens, it's like, what? That's weird. And then like this makes me like, but this is like, I don't know, the idea of, I don't know, interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary, or the idea of composition or dramaturgy is like, what's happening that this is in the same moment like appearing, can be really inspiring for bringing into a studio and see what was so, I don't know, talking about it and see like how can that be translated into I don't know, a constructed form. Horrible to say, but like, yeah, maybe a constructed form. But then also like, I don't know, like artists, I don't know, what did I see lately? I do admire really, really commercial pop music. This is fine. So meaning video clip, very, let's say, branded artists, commercial, the commercial approach of artists. And then I don't know if it's really horrible to say, but I'm not often inspired by other performances. Not that I think it's bad at all. It's not about that. It's just more like they are busy with their thing, and maybe it is because it is too close, or
Yeah,
too,
I totally understand.
to
You need to
thing.
find inspiration in other subjects or
I
more
think,
disciplines.
yeah, I think it's
and
more
bring it
like
up there.
it's more like a painting, an image, a street situation, a movie, but like I don't know, maybe it's a bit more a filter that if in this performance I already like no, because like maybe that I'm afraid that I'm gonna copy, or that I'm afraid we're gonna get too close or something. So I'm like not even wanna be rather be a little bit far from them to not fall in this like canon of like I don't know, canon of applied same language that very much can happen when you're, I don't know, invited into a festival and you're like, okay, obviously we all did the same school. And it's like, okay, and I'm like, that's also sad, because like you see their potential, but you see also who mentor was behind that. I'm like, okay, it's really a lot also about getting knowledge, but then also breaking them and making them your own. And yeah, so I don't know. This
Yeah,
is
I
how
know. I
can
totally understand. I mean, inspiration is not only in the practices and the disciplines that are alike, but it's in everything, and it's actually very transcendent and even relevant that you look beyond the established statement of what is performance or what is, no? Because you need to. Okay, very last question, or it's more like a comment. Yeah, I remember I saw your work first time maybe 3 years ago. I don't remember, but it was in last time I was in the Swiss Art Awards,
Oui.
and I was with one of my best friends, and we're like, this is so boring, and with in general, and then we find out you, and you were like with this room full of a technical installation, and you were doing a hyper complex installation, and we're very curious, and there was nobody there, and we're like, what's this guy? Who's this guy? What he's doing? He's doing a technical installation, and suddenly everyone was there, and you were performing,
Yeah.
and you look very high, and we're
Yeah.
like, this guy is very high. Is he high? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's in a joke, but it's also a curiosity. And
Yeah, yeah.
then I was like, yeah, what happened with them? And then when I was like looking for artists for this program, I totally what's happened with that guy? Like, I remember, but I wasn't even sure. I didn't remember, because it was quite some years ago.
Yes, yes.
And then I didn't have went back to for different reasons. I didn't went back, but I keep it in my mind. And so the question is, but is it, no offense, yeah, no offense.
Was I high or
I mean,
not?
it wasn't exactly.
I was
mean,
not.
was
I
high
know.
or not? I mean, really, I mean, I can. Of course, it's a very naive question, because in a way
No.
you can be in such a, you're performing and in such condition. I mean, it's price, and price has to be as it needs,
I'm
But it's a
priceless.
curiosity. It's like this curiosity we had.
No, I know. I mean, this is like a question in this work. This question appeared many times.
Okay, thank
So
you.
don't worry about that.
Thank you.
And that's I had lentils. No, that's not
Yeah.
wrong. Contact
Contact lenses.
contact lenses. Yeah, lentils is like to eat. No,
Yeah.
contact lenses. And they're like a bit chromic, and they give it a bit of a, like a, the idea of maybe something more about under influence, or we could say high or whatsoever. That's how I graduate. Here we are. Look at this. This is not my eyes, huh? This is lenses.
Okay.
So that was the greatest hits. That was that performance here. Karatas hits. 2015 it was. Da. So it was in Kiewer Hablitzel. I was like in this section, and
That's from
that was that time, yeah.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, that's how I
the
remember,
concerts,
yeah.
and then the concert started. It's like 45, 50 minutes. I do these hits, and I really behave not as a pop star. So but I try to deliver vocally. So like it's a bit like, yes, does he looks like under influence, but like why, like, I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
it
I
will not
think it's
work.
a
I
very
could not
relevant
deliver if
aesthetic
it's like,
today. I mean, it really brings this aesthetics. I mean, you bring up like melancholic
Yeah.
aesthetics, emotional aesthetics, and suddenly this, which is actually a very common thing, because of course it's part of mainstream culture to consume any type of drugs. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like a taboo. It's not actually a negative aspect. It's more as a curiosity. It's
Yeah.
as a fact, comes as aesthetic, or is as a byproduct. Or that was more the question, yeah.
No, I mean that I know, like at that time, Price was in the very beginning in his identity, or how I developed, or how I don't know, wanted to, or how he so far was presenting himself was really one part. I believe, and I hope in further works he opened up a bit more, especially with the acts where you can become other things. Let's say that the first work was really more focusing on one symptom or one. So it was very much like, wow, very maybe drugged up, we can say, or like under influence and passive, and very much, yeah, I think I would say. So that concert is executed in this symptom and doesn't variate in others. So yes, I did also, as you see, I did also in Helmhouse and other places, And yeah, people do. Another place I did, they was like, one girl thought I was blind, and I was like, no, I'm not. And then like another was like, yeah, you were really drunk, and then like I was like, and so
I mean, of course, we
it's
were
fine.
with my. I remember with my
It's
friend, we were
fine. I
like,
don't care.
"Wow,
It's
he's a complete technician." You know, my friend is a very, is an
yeah,
engineer, actually, artist
yeah,
and engineer, and we were like, "No, he's not high. I mean, forget about. He's like doing this complex installation. He's like a technician." And we were like, "Really?" Like I remember, I totally remember. It was a very impressive already installation, and also in
yeah.
comparison, because you know, installing and performing, you know, performing installation, and so
Mm-hmm.
it brings up the ambiguity, as you mentioned before, about the transdisciplinarity, you know, that
Yeah.
is not limited to levels, established levels. And I think that's a great position today.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as we need more labels, you know, we need, or not, we don't need, we need more freedom of categories. We need more,
Yeah,
to
I
build
would
more
wish.
categories, no, in which we can fit, or if not, at least that we have this broad spectrum of several categories, in which, as you mentioned it at the beginning, you know, that you can be labeled in many, like I think fashion and in
Mm-hmm.
art
Yes.
design, or in artistic direction and so on, performativity and so on, installation, as I first learned about your work, and
Mm-hmm.
then performativity. So I think it's a very great job. And I don't know if we can keep it longer. I think we probably had to end it, even if I think
That's
you
good.
could share a lot of your amazing experiences, because of course you had a lot. But if you don't have any more questions, and unless you had to give a latest statement, like,
That's.
yeah,
I don't know. What's no? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy when people embrace different disciplines and merge them together. I think that's the future. And yeah,